Have you ever walked into a place that turned your day into a living nightmare? For me, it was a cozy little diner where the warm smiles on the walls froze into cold stares, and their hospitality burned everything to the ground. They thought I'd just walk away and forget. Well, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Let's start from the beginning. Raymond Jenkins, a 34-year-old mechanic, dragged himself out of his shop after a 12-hour shift. His clothes carried the scent of motor oil, and his stomach growled louder than the engines he'd been fixing all day. He decided to treat himself for once. His choice? A little spot called Sunny Sunset Diner, famous for its cozy vibe and home-cooked meals. Sounded like the perfect ending to a grueling day, or so he thought. As Raymond pushed open the diner's wooden door, a small bell jingled above his head, announcing his arrival. He stepped inside with a tired but hopeful smile. Then, like flipping a switch, the room fell eerily silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused mid-air. Every single head turned toward him. Okay, that's weird, he thought. The warm, inviting energy this place was supposed to be known for, nowhere to be found. The patrons, almost all white, exchanged glances and hushed whispers. Raymond could feel their eyes boring into him like he'd walked in covered in grease, which, to be fair, wasn't entirely wrong, but the vibe, way off. His instincts prickled. Something about this wasn't right. He looked around. The decor screamed small-town charm. Checkered tablecloths, vintage posters, a jukebox humming softly in the corner. A couple of folks in the back laughed under their breath, shooting quick glances in his direction. A younger waitress approached him. Her name tag read, Bethany in elegant cursive. Everything about her, from the tight bun on her head to the way she held her notepad, radiated judgment. Bethany didn't smile, not even close. Instead, she stopped a few feet away from Raymond, her posture stiff. "We're almost fully booked," she said, her voice as dry as a month-old biscuit. Raymond scanned the room. More than half the tables were empty. He raised an eyebrow, his irritation bubbling under the surface. "Yeah, looks like there's plenty of room to me," he replied, keeping his tone polite but firm. Bethany hesitated, then let out a soft, dismissive huff, like he was the punchline to some joke. "Fine, sit wherever," she said, walking off without so much as a glance back. Raymond sighed and chose a table near the window. It offered a good view of the street, anything to distract him from the uncomfortable atmosphere inside. After a few minutes, Bethany finally returned, still stone-faced. "What do you want?" she asked, not even pretending to jot down his order. "Medium rare steak, sweet tea, that's it," Raymond answered, his patience thinning. Bethany barely acknowledged him before turning on her heel and striding back to the kitchen. The faint sound of laughter followed her departure, this time from a couple in the corner booth. Raymond clenched his jaw. He wasn't here for drama, just food and a moment to breathe. 15 minutes passed, then 20. No steak, no tea. Instead, another figure approached him. A middle-aged man in a crisp white button-down. The slight sneer on his face gave him away as the manager. "Sir," the manager began, his tone dripping with false politeness, "I'm afraid we won't be able to serve you tonight." Raymond blinked, his exhaustion mixing with disbelief. "Excuse me? Why not?" The manager hesitated, then delivered his excuse with all the grace of a bad actor in a school play. "We, have certain policies, and the kitchen is closing." Raymond's stomach churned, not from hunger, but from the audacity of this guy. It wasn't about policies. It wasn't about the kitchen. It was about him. He glanced around the room again. The other diners sat frozen, their curiosity barely masking their discomfort. Some of them wouldn't even meet his gaze. It was like he'd wandered onto a stage in a play where everyone but him knew the script. "Policies, huh?" Raymond said, standing up slowly. He locked eyes with the manager, keeping his voice steady despite the fire rising in his chest. "All right, thanks for the hospitality." With that, he grabbed his jacket and walked out. He felt the weight of every pair of eyes on his back, judging, mocking, or worse, ignoring. By the time he reached his car, his fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles ached. Raymond sat in the driver's seat for a moment, staring at the diner's cheerful sign glowing in the evening light. Sunny sunset. What a joke. The anger inside him wasn't going away. Not this time. Something had to change. Raymond sat in his car, his fingers drumming on the steering wheel. His appetite was long gone, replaced by a mix of frustration and something sharper, determination. For a moment, he considered driving away, letting it slide like he had so many times before. But not this time. Not again. Pulling out his phone, he opened the camera app, angling it to capture his face illuminated by the dim streetlights. His expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed the storm brewing inside. "All right, let's talk about what just happened," he began, his voice steady but loaded with emotion. "I walked into Sunny Sunset Diner tonight, tired from work, just looking for a meal. Instead, I got shown that people like me aren't welcome there." He paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. His tone shifted, heavier now. "This isn't new. This has been happening for years. To me, to people who look like me, to people who speak out. And I'm tired of it. Aren't you?" Raymond leaned closer to the camera, his voice rising. "How many of us have to deal with this nonsense before it changes? How many of us have to stay silent while they get away with it? Today, it was me. Tomorrow, it's going to be someone else. And that's not okay." He hit the stop button and stared at the screen for a moment before uploading the video. No fancy captions, no edits, just raw truth. Send. Within minutes, the notifications started rolling in. Comments, likes, shares. It was like throwing a match into a pile of dry leaves. People resonated with his story. The comment section became a flood of outrage and solidarity. "Dude, I have been there. Same story, different place," one comment read. "This is unacceptable. Stay strong, man," wrote another. But one reply stood out. "I know a journalist. Let's get this on the news." By morning, the video had gone viral. Thousands of views, hundreds of shares, and it wasn't just the internet buzzing. Raymond pulled up to the diner the next day to find a scene straight out of a protest documentary. A crowd had gathered outside, activists holding handmade signs, bloggers live streaming to their audiences, and curious locals drawn in by the commotion. The hum of voices and the occasional chant filled the air. Among the crowd, a tall woman with a no-nonsense expression and a press badge clipped to her jacket stood out. Raymond recognized her immediately. Ellie Harper, a journalist known for digging up dirt on shady businesses and corrupt officials. She was holding a mic in one hand and scrolling through her phone with the other. "Raymond, right?" she called out when she spotted him. "Your video stirred up quite the storm. Mind telling me what went down?" Raymond hesitated, but nodded. "Sure, let's talk." Meanwhile, inside the diner, chaos reigned. The manager who had smugly dismissed Raymond the night before now looked like he'd seen a ghost. Staff darted back and forth, whispering frantically. Through the window, Raymond could see the manager pacing, his phone glued to his ear, probably calling anyone who could get him out of this mess. Ellie wasn't wasting time. She marched straight up to the front door, microphone raised. The manager reluctantly stepped outside, forcing a strained smile onto his face. "Sir," Ellie began, her tone sharp, "your diner is at the center of a growing controversy. Do you have anything to say about what happened last night?" The manager stammered, his carefully rehearsed lines faltering under the weight of her directness. We value all our customers. Last night was simply a misunderstanding." Ellie raised an eyebrow, holding up her phone with Raymond's video playing on the screen. "A misunderstanding? Because this doesn't look like one. Care to explain?" The manager's smile wavered, but he doubled down. "Our policies are in place to ensure a pleasant experience for everyone. We're a small business, you see." "Spare me the PR pitch," Ellie interrupted. "Why did you refuse to serve him?" Before the manager could respond, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Yeah, why?" The tension thickened, and all eyes turned to the manager, who now looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Raymond stood quietly on the sidelines, watching it all unfold. Part of him felt vindicated, but another part remained skeptical. Protests and headlines were one thing, but real change, that felt like a much taller mountain to climb. Still, as he saw the growing crowd and heard their voices demanding justice, a flicker of hope ignited within him. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, and Raymond wasn't going to back down. Raymond stood at the entrance of Sunny Sunset Diner, his reflection caught in the glass door. Behind him, a small group of determined activists, including Ellie Harper, clutched their signs and cameras. The crowd outside had grown louder, their chants demanding accountability echoing through the air. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was bigger than that. Taking a deep breath, Raymond pushed the door open and stepped inside. The usual hum of diner chatter was gone, replaced by the tense silence of a staff caught in the crosshairs. The manager stood near the counter, his face a mask of poorly concealed annoyance. He straightened up when he saw Raymond, but didn't move an inch. Raymond wasted no time. "We're here for an apology," he said, his voice calm but firm. His gaze locked onto the manager's, unyielding. The manager blinked, then, to everyone's shock, let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't the laugh of someone amused, it was the kind that came from someone cornered, trying to mask their discomfort with arrogance. "An apology," he repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You really think your little group here is going to change anything? Cameras, signs, all this noise, it's a show. You'll leave, and tomorrow, this place will be packed. You're not stopping anyone." The room seemed to freeze. Raymond could feel the tension shift, the outrage in the air like a spark waiting to ignite. Ellie stepped forward, her phone still recording. "Care to repeat that for the camera?" she asked, her tone cutting. The manager smirked but said nothing, retreating a step behind the counter. That smirk, Raymond thought, was the final straw. He wasn't just going to stand here and let this slide. One of the activists whispered to Raymond, "We should call the cops. This guy's breaking more than just social norms." Raymond nodded. Within moments, a call was made, and the police were on their way. While they waited, Raymond's mind wandered. There was something in his car, an old folder he'd been carrying around. It held a complaint he'd started writing months ago about another incident at a different restaurant. The thought hit him like a bolt of lightning. Why not use it now? "I'll be right back," Raymond said to Ellie, rushing out to his car. He grabbed the folder and returned, flipping through its contents. There it was, a detailed account of the discrimination he'd faced, complete with video evidence and names of witnesses. By the time the police arrived, Raymond was ready. The officers entered, their presence shifting the energy in the room yet again. The manager straightened his posture, attempting to look professional, but the sweat on his brow betrayed him. "Evening, officers," Raymond began, handing over the folder. "This isn't just about last night. This is a pattern. I've got video proof, and I'm not the only one who's experienced it." Ellie chimed in, showing the officers the footage from Raymond's viral video. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she added. "It's a systemic problem, and it's time something was done." The officers reviewed the evidence, their expressions growing more serious by the minute. One of them turned to the manager, who now looked like he was reconsidering every life decision that had brought him to this moment. "We'll need to take a closer look at your records," one officer said, his tone firm. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was swift and decisive. As the investigation unfolded, more stories began to surface. Former employees came forward, sharing their own experiences of working under the manager's biased policies. Customers revealed similar incidents, painting a damning picture of a business built on exclusion. The final blow came in court. The evidence was overwhelming. Discriminatory practices, falsified records, and multiple violations of state regulations. The judge's ruling was clear. Sunny Sunset Diner would be shut down indefinitely. Raymond stood outside the now closed diner one last time, watching as the once busy establishment was boarded up. It wasn't just a victory for him. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or made to feel less than. The ripples of Raymond's actions spread far beyond the diner. His story inspired countless others to speak out, to push back against the injustices they faced. People started organizing, sharing resources, and demanding accountability in their own communities. As he walked back to his car, Raymond glanced at his phone. A new message had come in. "Thanks for standing up. You've given us hope." He smiled, a quiet sense of pride settling over him. It wasn't just about the diner or the manager. It was about the power of one voice, multiplied by many, refusing to stay silent. What would you have done in Raymond's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know faced a similar situation? Don't forget to like and share the story to spread awareness and keep the conversation going. Together, we can shine a light on these issues and work toward a more inclusive and just world. This story is created with the hope of inspiring change and bringing attention to important issues of discrimination. Your voice matters, and your opinion has the power to make a difference. Let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.